Hi, today we're going to be talking about the acquisition of language and some hypotheses that we chose to talk about. Bye.
Hi guys, my name is Giancarlo, and today I will go into talking about the acquisition learn station, the first hypothesis. And okay, as a part of the group, I will talking about the first hypothesis discussed, which is the acquisition learning distinction. And generally, we know that adults can acquire the second language, and but the theory suggests the two forms are using the fear acquisition of language. There is said, and that is a similar process, but not so much compared to that of a child, and for the acquisitive of another language, and sometimes they are not aware of what they are saying. For example, if they are speaking grammatically, and if they make a mistake, they didn't put it, be very careful, and when making mistaken signs, they use the language more to communicate with use begin able to spread it. Okay, and the second way is be language learning. If we're talking about the second way, we can focus on his theory and of hypothesis, and referring and meaning to the norms, rules, and expression that are focused, and also the grammar of a second language, the way to learn, and that language based on it is relevant and applicable format, and in a communication and somewhat different from the first way. For example, to communicate according to way to what you learn in this way, we will know who to identify with it the correct structure to speak the language. And well, and the hypothesis we can say that it is important to observe the different appropriate and in the learning of a new language. We can say that a child carry a language also in easier easier way, and a product that much very similar, and he's made and is more awake for adults, is more applicable because it will also focus on structuring setting language. It is no longer just a similarity in the word, but carry a grammatical order. Thank you for watching my presentation. To continue my part.
Hello guys, my name is Daniel Dickes, and today I will explain a little about my hypothesis. And its name is the natural order hypothesis. And well, the natural order hypothesis states that the grammatical structures are acquired in a predictable or predetermined order. That is, there are certain grammatical structures that are acquired later and the others later. According to the natural order, the learners acquire the grammatical morpheme ing before the third person morpheme, that is s. It appears that the acquisition of the first language is not identical to the order of acquisition of the second language. They can be are similarities, but at least for the grammatical morphemes of English, the order of acquisition in children who learn it as a first language resembles the order of acquisition in adults who learn it as a second language. We can say that there is a first language order and the other is the second language order. One possible implication of this hypothesis is that the teaching a language through a traditional structured program doesn't necessarily help them acquire the language that they need. The students can to produce a structure before they are ready to do so, maybe. For a given language, some grammatical structures tend to be acquired early while the others are acquired late. This order is seemed to be independent of the age of the learners. And for another hand, in the studies there were statistically significant similarities that confirmed the existence of the natural order of language acquisition. One problem with this is that the natural order hypothesis doesn't account for the influence of the first language on second language acquisition. In fact, some studies suggest that the second language learners acquire a second language in different orders depending on their mother tongue. Therefore, the second language learners don't necessarily acquire the grammatical structure in a predictable sequence. This can be a coincidence with the feeling that even after teaching the same structure countless times, some studies seem not to grasp it and use it spontaneously. So, it is possible that we cannot teach grammar? Cannot we control what the students will learn and how they can learn? The objection to that statement will be that those students who apparently use the new pattern spontaneously do so not because of any explicit instruction from their teacher, but because their natural and innate capacity for language acquisition produces that language at an unconscious level. The truth of this is that we cannot know for sure whether this spontaneous use of language came from instruction and practice or from an inconsequent process. For me, this can be certainly true that being able to go from instruction and practice can be spontaneous use only worked with a minority of higher aptitude students. From my experience is that you can teach the grammar and have some students uploaded in the order that you taught. If it didn't work for many students, maybe it was because there wasn't enough time and practice to make it happen. Remember that the language is difficult and takes time for learning. Well, this is my hypothesis. My classmate explaining more about his sports.
Hello, my name is Saul, and today I'm going to be talking about one of the hypotheses. The one that I chose was the monitor hypothesis. So, the monitor hypothesis explains the relationship between acquisition and learning and defines the influence of the latter on the former. The monitoring function is the practical result of the learned grammar. The acquisition system is the utterance initiator, while the learning system performs the role of the monitor or editor. So the monitor hypothesis tells us that acquisition and learning are used differently for very specific reasons. Acquisition usually initiates with utterances or pronunciation, and it is what helps us be fluent in a language. Learning functions as a monitor. It makes changes to the form of our pronunciation. So this basically tells us that acquisition refers to the understanding of the language without taking in consideration the grammatical rules or mostly any rules at all. Afterwards, it is the learning function that helps give a more full understanding of what is going on. It dives into correct pronunciation, structure, accents, and more. This difference can be observed when comparing someone who speaks it since their birth or learned it at a very young age and someone who learned it afterwards at a relatively advanced age. For someone who learned it afterwards at a relatively advanced age, it might be a little difficult to understand the pronunciation or to reach the fluidity of a native speaker. And this is mostly because they understand most of the language and their focus is reduced to be grammatically correct, because they know the rules. So the monitor acts in a planning, editing, and correcting function only when three specific conditions are met. And here we have those three conditions. Being the first one, the second language learner has sufficient time at their disposal. They focus on form or think about correctness. And finally, they know the rules. The role of conscious learning is limited in the performance of the second language. It is only used to correct some small errors and make the speech nicer. What I consider a very good example would be when we, who speak Spanish, encounter ourselves talking about our grammar rules. For the most part, we don't understand anything regarding our grammar. We know the basic, but we are fluent in our own. In the same way, I have noticed that those who speak English will speak fluently, but might not understand when I ask something about grammar, structure, or order. Although this doesn't limit itself to the ones who focus entirely on being grammatically correct. Krashen suggests that there is some variation among the language learners regarding the monitor use. The ones that stand out are those learners that use the monitor all the time, those learners who have not learned or who prefer not to use their conscious knowledge, and those learners that use the monitor appropriately. So as a fact, usually extroverts are the ones who preferred not to use their conscious knowledge, while introverts are perfectionists are the ones who use the monitor at all time. As a side note, lack of confidence is equally related to the overuse of the monitor, being those who use it all the time. With the last point, I can recall some moments where I have seen people talking with a lot of confidence, but sometimes don't pronounce some words correctly, or just change the language to different accents. When talking to someone who is an introvert, I find it very easy to understand what they're saying. And when I talk to one of my classmates, I often understand what they're saying because of the order or structure, but sometimes I will find myself struggling with a word that maybe they didn't pronounce right. So yeah, that is my opinion on this hypothesis and some examples that I've seen in real life with people that I actually know and that actually speak language. And I take in consideration both of them, the ones who learned it afterwards and the ones who know how to speak it since they were kids. And you can see this. You can see the difference. And yeah, so that's my opinion, and that would be everything from us. So thank you for watching.